Friday night was supposed to be quiet. I just wrapped up a 14-hour stretch finalizing engineering reports for the medical device Nexra Biolabs was preparing to launch. A device projected to bring in more revenue than anything the company had produced in the last decade. My office was still lit when every other floor had gone dark. My desk covered in prototypes, patent drafts, and 8-figure contracts I needed to sign off on before the weekend. I closed my laptop, took a breath, and reached for my phone, assuming it would be another calendar update from my project manager or a ping from the regulatory team. Instead, the screen lit up with the family group chat, something I usually avoided because the conversations were either judgment, gossip, or thinly disguised mockery. This time it was worse. My younger brother Gage had typed a single line that hit like an accidental elbow to the ribs. "Don't come to the barbecue this weekend. My new wife says you'll stink up the whole party." No emojis. No context. Just that. And before I could even process it, my mother reacted with a long string of red hearts, as if the message was a cute inside joke. My dad added a thumbs up. An aunt commented with laughing emojis. Nobody questioned it. Nobody defended me. Nobody even hesitated. It was casual cruelty served like a family appetizer. I stared at the screen for a long moment, the glow casting a pale reflection across the surface of my desk. I wasn't angry. Anger was too small for something like this. I wasn't even surprised. Being treated like the family oddball was almost routine at this point. I was the quiet one, the science girl, the sibling who worked in some lab doing who knows what, as my mother liked to say at holiday dinners. They had never understood my work, never asked, never cared. As far as they were concerned, I probably lived paycheck to paycheck somewhere in a dim basement surrounded by beakers and test tubes while the rest of them posted curated family photos and called it a life. That image was comfortable for them. It gave them someone to dismiss, someone safe to belittle, someone who wouldn't fight back. They had no idea I was sitting in the top corner office of a biotech firm valued at over $9 billion, one signature away from approving a device projected to change early-stage diagnostics across half the country. They had no idea that the weird science job was actually an executive role most engineers would kill for. They had no idea that my salary alone was more than my parents' combined income for the last 3 years. They had no idea that I own not just my home, but theirs too, quietly helping whenever they came up short, always making sure they never saw the strings attached to my support. They had no idea because they never looked closely enough to see me as anything other than the easiest target in the group. Gage's message, as stupid and childish as it was, simply confirmed what had always been true. They didn't respect me, didn't value me, didn't even think twice before pushing me out of something as simple as a family barbecue. And for the first time, I didn't feel the usual sting. I didn't feel the familiar ache that came with being the invisible one at the table. I felt nothing except clarity. I typed one word back. Understood. No exclamation mark. No sarcasm. No attempt to defend myself. Just a simple acknowledgement, clean and sharp. I dropped the phone face down on the desk and leaned back in my chair as the quiet settled into the room. Outside the glass wall of my office, the city lights blurred into streaks against the dark sky. Inside, everything felt unnervingly calm, like the moment right before a storm breaks and changes the landscape forever. They thought I would be upset. They thought I would beg for an explanation. They thought I would show up anyway like I always did, gritting my teeth, playing peacekeeper, pretending their comments didn't hit as hard as they did. What they didn't realize was that the version of me they laughed at didn't exist anymore. I'd grown out of that person years ago. They just hadn't noticed because noticing would require effort. And effort was never something my family invested in me. When people tell you exactly how little they think of you, you don't argue. You listen. You take note. You stop giving them more than they deserve. That night, as I grabbed my bag and shut the office lights, I knew something had shifted. Not in them but in me. I had let their dismissiveness define me for so long that I forgot how powerful silence could be. Not the defeated kind. The intentional kind. The kind that says, I'm done proving my worth to people who never cared to see it in the first place. What none of them knew. Not my mother with her hearts. Not my dad with his lazy thumbs up. Not even my brother with his pitiful attempt at bravado, was that they were about to find out exactly who I was. And they weren't going to like it. The next morning started like any other. Quiet office, early sunlight spilling across the polished floors, My coffee still too hot to drink. I was going through FDA documentation, half muttering to myself about a line item the regulatory team had phrased wrong, when my desk phone buzzed. Blair, my receptionist, sounded unusually hesitant. Palmer. There's a woman downstairs asking for the person who handles angel investments. She won't give her name, but she says it's urgent. She has a man with her. I knew that tone. Blair wasn't easily rattled. Something about their energy had thrown her off. I set my pen down. Send them up, I said. 90 seconds later, the glass doors slid open and the performance began. Tegan entered first, tight red dress, sunglasses shoved into her hair, the kind of slow, dramatic walk you only see from people who desperately want to be seen. She looked like she'd prepared this entrance in a mirror. Gage shuffled behind her with his hands jammed into his pockets, eyes down, the posture of a man who knew he shouldn't be here but didn't have the backbone to stop whatever was coming. They stepped 3 feet into my office before they froze. Not slowed. Froze. Tegan's sunglasses slipped straight out of her hand and clattered onto the marble floor. Her mouth fell open as her gaze flicked from my face to the brass nameplate on the front of my desk, then to the massive Nexera Biolabs logo glowing behind me. Palmer Whitlock, Executive Vice President, Engineering. She blinked twice hard, as if she was trying to unsee what she saw. You work here, she whispered. It came out thin like her throat had closed up. Gage looked like someone had punched the air out of him. This is your office? His voice cracked in the middle. I leaned back in my chair, hands resting lightly on the armrests, the picture of calm. Yes, I said. What do you two want? For 5 full seconds Tegan said nothing. Then she snapped back into character like someone had hit a reset switch. The shock on her face melted into a bright, glossy smile, fake enough to smell from across the room. She strode forward, pulling a thick, glossy pitch deck from her bag and placing it right in the center of my desk. Palmer, this is incredible. This is literally perfect timing. She even clapped her hands together like a child seeing a birthday cake. I'm raising $2 million for my medical diagnostic startup. Next-gen point-of-care testing. Total industry disruptor. We're right on the verge of FDA clearance. All we need is one smart investor who understands the space. I didn't touch the deck. You showed up at my office, I said slowly, on a Saturday morning without an appointment to ask for $2 million. Tegan didn't even blink. Because you're family, she said like that explained everything. You can write the check today. It won't even make a dent for you. Gage nodded eagerly, stepping closer. Come on, sis. This could change our lives. Family helps family. My jaw tightened just a fraction. No, the fake smile on Tegan's face cracked like a dropped plate. No, she repeated like she'd never heard the word before. You're kidding, right? Leave, I said. Calm. Quiet. Final. Her voice shot up so sharply that the people outside the glass walls lifted their heads. Are you serious? You sit in this giant office making millions while your own brother needs you. And you won't even listen. She turned around dramatically so everyone on the floor could hear her. This is why nobody wants her around. She's jealous. She can't stand that Gage finally has a real partner. The words echoed through the open floor, bouncing off glass and steel. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I didn't give her the reaction she wanted. Security had already noticed the volume. 2 guards approached, quiet, professional, used to people like her. Ma'am, one said, you need to lower your voice and exit the building. Tegan spun on them like they'd insulted her bloodline. Do you even know who she is? That's her brother. You can't remove us. Gage tugged at her arm. Tegan, come on, let's just go. She yanked her arm free like a spoiled child. No. She doesn't get to embarrass us like this. Her voice bounced off every surface in the department. Engineers stopped typing. Analysts pretended not to stare. Even the interns froze by the coffee machine. The guard stepped closer, gesturing toward the elevator. This way, please. Tegan's face turned red to the shade of her dress. You'll regret this, she screeched as they guided her out. You hear me, Palmer? You're nothing without us. Gage looked back once, eyes wide with confusion and betrayal. You're choosing this place over family, he said softly. I'm choosing peace, I said. And then the elevator doors slid shut, cutting off the last of Tegan's screams as the floor fell into a stunned silence. Blair appeared in my doorway a moment later, eyebrows raised. "Your brother's wife is a lot," she said gently. I let out a long, steady breath. "You have no idea." What none of them knew, not Blair, not the security guards, not even Gage, was that this wasn't the climax. It was only the first crack in a dam that had been straining for years. And the rail break was coming. The moment security dragged them out of my building, the calls started. At first, they came one at a time, Gage's name lighting up my phone like a flickering bulb, but by the fourth call, the vibration was non-stop. I let them all ring out while I finished reviewing the FDA clearance timeline on my second monitor. I was halfway through updating a memo when call number 7 came in, and for reasons I can't explain, I answered. The second I said hello, Gage exploded. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" he shouted, his voice breaking in places. "Tegan's in the car crying because of you. You humiliated her. You humiliated both of us." I didn't answer. Silence unnerved him more than yelling back ever could. "You couldn't give us 5 minutes?" he continued. "You called security on your own family. Your own family, Palmer. What is wrong with you?" I took a slow breath and stared out the window at downtown Raleigh. "Are you done?" I asked calmly. He made a choking sound. "You're heartless. You always have been. You don't care about anyone but yourself." "Anything else?" I said. He hung up. 10 minutes later, the text came in like a hailstorm. Dozens of messages, long walls of guilt and blame, and sentences written in all caps like tantrums from a man who hadn't emotionally aged past 14. "You just killed our future. Tegan hasn't stopped crying. You're cold. You're cruel. Hope your fancy office keeps you warm." I muted the thread and went back to work. They wanted a reaction. I wasn't giving them one. But at 10:02 a.m., everything shifted. A Wells Fargo notification flashed across my screen. Normally I would have ignored it, thinking it was a routine monthly statement. Instead, my eyes landed on the line below the header. Pre-approval alert. Personal loan $480,000. Cosigner Palmer Whitlock. Primary borrower, Gage Whitlock. Secondary borrower, Tegan Ashford Whitlock. My stomach dropped. I clicked the notification and opened the application. It was fully filled out, every line, every field, every detail. My social security number. My current address. Even scans of my old pay stubs. Pay stubs I hadn't seen since I'd moved houses years ago. Pay stubs that had been in a storage box at my mother's house. The timestamp on the application read 2:14 a.m. While they were planning to stand in my office and ask for money to my face, they were secretly trying to tie me to a $500,000 loan behind my back. I called Mark, my relationship manager at Wells Fargo. He answered on the second ring. "Mark, kill the loan application," I said. He pulled it up fast. "Jesus, Palmer. They forged your signature. You want hard denial and a fraud flag." "Yes. And freeze all new applications using my information for 90 days. He clicked keys rapidly. "Done. Confirmation email in 4 minutes. At 10:04 a.m., the email hit my inbox stamped in bold red letters. Permanently denied. Fraud suspicion documented. I forwarded the PDF to Gage without a word. He called instantly. Declined. He called again. Declined. On the third attempt, the caller ID changed. Tegan. I answered. She didn't waste a second. "You think you're clever?" she hissed. "Blocking our loan like some petty little queen?" I kept my voice flat. "You used my identity without permission. It's called supporting family," she snapped. "You make millions, Palmer. 480 is nothing to you. You forged my signature," I repeated. She laughed. A sharp, cold laugh that made my skin crawl. "Stop pretending you're the victim. I'm telling your parents everything. They'll know exactly what kind of selfish, greedy daughter they raised. You'll be isolated from this family for the rest of your life. Start," I said. "Lead with how you committed felony identity fraud." Silence. 3 seconds. 4. Then her voice dropped to a slow, venomous whisper. "You will regret this." She hung up. I set the phone down and folded my hands, letting the stillness settle into the room. They hadn't just crossed a boundary, they had annihilated it. And if they thought manipulating me emotionally was going to make me back down after a stunt like that, they didn't know me at all. I opened my browser and pulled up the 3 major credit bureaus. One by one, I placed extended 7-year fraud alerts, froze my credit entirely, and notified every financial institution I'd ever used that no application, loan, card, or account was to be approved without my direct verbal confirmation. Then I forwarded every confirmation to my attorney. When I finally leaned back in my chair, a quiet, steady certainty settled in my chest. They weren't just reckless. They were dangerous. And there was no going back now. I thought the loan fraud was the climax, the peak of their desperation. I thought shutting down that $480,000 scam would buy me a few days of peace. But the universe had other plans. The truth wasn't done with me yet. Not even close. That evening around 7:40 p.m., I heard a soft knock at my door. Not frantic like my mother's, not sharp like Gage's, just gentle. When I checked the peephole, no one was there. Only a thick brown envelope sitting neatly on my welcome mat. No sender name. No stamp. No label. Just my name typed in a plain serif font. The kind people use when they want something to look official without drawing attention. I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen island, and stared at it for a moment. Something about the weight of it felt wrong. Too heavy to be junk. Too deliberate to be random. I sliced the top open with a steak knife. 42 pages slid out, clipped together in a clean black binder clip. The header on the first page almost made me drop it. Private Investigation Report, subject, Tegan Ashford Whitlock. Prepared by Larkin and Holt Investigations. My breath locked in my throat, and then I saw it. Tucked between the first 2 pages, a handwritten note on the back of a folded electricity bill. My father's handwriting. Shaky. Uneven. Something I hadn't seen in years. I've been suspicious for a long time. Didn't know how to bring it up. If you can handle this, please do. I'm sorry. Dad. I stood there frozen, one hand holding the note, the other gripping the counter. My father, quiet, conflict avoidant, permanently apologetic, had gone behind everyone's back and hired a private investigator. That alone told me the contents would be devastating. I sat down, braced myself, and started reading. Page 1 was a summary. Facts. Cold. Clinical. Brutal. Tegan Ashford. Age 27. Married to Gage Whitlock since December 2023. Previous marriage. 2021 to 2022. Husband. Maverick Whitaker. Divorce filed after Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I blinked at the name. Maverick? Gage never mentioned any ex-husband. No one did. Page 2 hit harder. Court documents. Filed bankruptcy orders. 8 maxed out credit cards. A home foreclosed. Vehicles repossessed. Every debt under Maverick's name. Every loan application accompanied by Tegan's signature as authorized spouse. Page after page told the same story in different fonts. She had drained a man dry and walked away without a scratch. I kept flipping. Pages 8 to 12 were screenshots of text messages between Tegan and Maverick, messages she'd sent while convincing him to max out cards for a beauty startup that existed only in her imagination. Just sign the papers, baby, it's temporary. Once the business takes off, we'll pay it all back. Stop worrying. Banks don't check that stuff. The same lines she used on Gage. The exact same script. When I reached page 14, I had to stop and steady my breathing. Current debt. $189,000 across 12 credit cards. All maxed out. 3 personal loans in the last 3 months. Total $142,000. Every loan opened under Gage's name. Funds transferred to Tegan's personal account within 24 hours. The investigator included screenshots of bank statements. Thousands moved in and out like she was running her own private laundering operation. Home renovation, she claimed. Business equipment, she wrote. Not a single receipt. Not a single purchase. Not a single renovation ever started. Page 20 held the screenshot that sealed it. A text thread with a loan officer. Tegan. Just tell them my husband makes $120K. They won't check. The officer approved the loan the same day. My jaw clenched so hard I felt pain shoot into my ear. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't poor money management. This was practiced. Smooth. Experienced. A pattern. A career-level skill. On page 25, the report shifted into her digital footprint. Private Instagram stories not visible to Gage. Tegan posing in front of houses she didn't own. Luxury cars she didn't drive. Designer bags she never purchased. Captions like "My empire is rising." "7-figure seed round incoming." "Haters will watch me win." She was creating a fantasy life online while bleeding my brother dry in the real one. But page 31 was the one that made my stomach drop. Full credit report pulled the day before. Gage's credit score: 621 3 months ago. Gage's credit score now: 547. Reason: unauthorized loans, high balances, late payments, all opened by Tegan. She wasn't just ruining her finances. She was burying him alive. The last section was only 4 pages, but it hit harder than the rest. Dad's timeline. Dates he noticed strange behavior. Receipts he'd accidentally seen. Moments when Gage seemed stressed but brushed it off. He'd been gathering clues quietly for months, pretending ignorance so he could gather the truth before accusing anyone. The final line in the Investigator's summary read, "Pattern consistent with repeated financial predation." Predation. The word made my skin crawl. I stared at the stack of pages spread across my table, feeling the full weight of what I just read settle on me like a stone. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just manipulation. This was intentional destruction, planned, rehearsed, perfected. And Gage, my gullible, loyal, painfully trusting little brother, never stood a chance. I picked up Dad's note again. "I'm sorry." He wasn't apologizing for investigating her. He was apologizing for not protecting his son sooner, for letting Tegan in, for watching Gage fall apart and not knowing how to stop it. I folded the note carefully, set it aside, and leaned back in my chair. Everything suddenly felt colder, sharper, clearer. The fraud attempt against me wasn't an impulsive move. It was the next step in a long pattern. And now that I knew exactly who Tegan really was, one thing was certain: whatever was coming next needed to end with her removed from our lives completely. By the time I reached the end of the private investigation report, something inside me shifted from anger to pure, steady resolve. It wasn't hot or impulsive anymore. It was cold, focused. The kind of clarity that comes after you've seen every lie laid out in black and white and finally understand the scale of the destruction. I picked up my laptop, opened a new email, and typed a message to the one person who understood Tegan better than any of us ever had, her ex-husband Maverick Whitaker. I kept it simple. "I have the full report. I know what she did to you. I need 5 minutes of your time. Name the place." He replied in 6 minutes. "No charge. I'll be there." That told me everything. When a man who lost everything refuses money to talk about the woman who ruined him, you know the damage ran deeper than the paperwork showed. After sending the email, I opened my mortgage portal. The Carey house, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a backyard Gage always bragged about like it was his achievement, was still under my name only. I'd bought it 4 years ago to give my brother breathing room while he figured things out. My attorney had reminded me years back that I never added him to the title. At the time it wasn't intentional. Now it was a lifeline. I toggled off autopay. The system asked, "Are you sure?" 3 times. I clicked yes 3 times. If Tegan wanted to play financial warfare, she just discovered she'd been standing on a battlefield I owned from end to end. Next, I opened a blank email to my attorney. Subject line: Initiate 30-day notice. I attached the investigator's report, the attempted fraudulent loan application, the screenshots of Tegan's messages, and the full breakdown of Gage's declining credit score. I added one line: Proceed without delay. Within 20 minutes she sent a draft back. 3 pages, crisp language, airtight. Formal termination of all financial support. 30-day notice to vacate. Immediate revocation of occupancy permission. Day 31 triggers eviction proceedings. I read it twice, proved it, and watched as she scheduled a process server for the next morning. While the legal machinery began turning, my phone lit up again. Gage calling, then Tegan, then both of them switching back and forth like they were tag-teaming a meltdown. I didn't answer a single call. The first voicemail came in 3 minutes later. Gage sobbing, begging me to just talk like family. The second voicemail was Tegan, her voice dripping with venom. If you think cutting us off is going to stop anything, you're dumber than I thought. We'll get what we need one way or another. Then the third notification, the one that made me close my eyes and count to 10. Wells Fargo alert. New joint credit card application submitted. Requested limit, $50,000. Primary gauge. Secondary Palmer. They were still trying to use my information. Still digging. Still stealing. Called Mark again. Kill it, I said. He didn't even bother with formalities this time. Already done. You want permanent freezes on all joint applications for the next quarter. Yes. Consider it locked. When I hung up, I took the next step, pulling full credit reports from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. I placed extended 7-year fraud alerts on all three, froze every bureau, then logged into every bank I'd ever used and added verbal passcodes and branch-only overrides. No loan, no account, no credit line would open again without my voice and my ID in front of a human being. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Tegan. You think you're so powerful. You think you can cut us off and walk away. I'll make sure the entire family knows what kind of monster you are. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying with 2 words. Good luck. 10 minutes after that, the family group chat detonated. Mom. Palmer, what is happening? Gage says you're ruining their lives. Dad. Call us. Gage. She blocked our loan and destroyed my credit. I can't believe this. Tegan. She's vindictive and jealous and unstable. She hates that we have a future. Aunt Linda. This is not how family behaves. Cousin Jenna. Why can't you just help your brother? I didn't answer. I didn't even open most of them, just let each message sit there marked as read while I made myself tea and sat by the window. Let them scream. Let them throw blame like confetti. Let them twist stories and play victim for an audience that always preferred drama to truth. I'd spent 35 years letting other people's storms pull me under. Not anymore. By midnight, my phone had racked up 147 messages and 39 missed calls. I turned it face down and went to bed with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. The clock had started. The eviction process was in motion. The financial cord was cut. The safety net was gone. And whether my family realized it or not, the next 30 days were going to expose everything they refused to see. Memorial Day arrived with the kind of bright Carolina sunshine that usually pulls entire neighborhoods outside. But I spent the morning in silence, reviewing the stack of documents spread across my kitchen island. The deed to the Carey house with my name alone stamped across the top. The 30-day eviction notice my attorney had hand-delivered yesterday. The mortgage statement showing autopay disabled, and the acceleration clause activated. The full bankruptcy file from Maverick Whitaker's case. The screenshots of Tegan's loan requests, her forged applications, her texts bragging about fake funding rounds. I put every paper in a clean manila folder and snapped it shut. Today wasn't about revenge. Today was about truth. And truth doesn't need theatrics. Just needs a place to land. At 1:58 p.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway. I could hear country music, laughter, clattering plates, the sizzle of ribs on the grill. Red cups everywhere. Children running in the yard. The Whitlock Memorial Day barbecue was practically a local tradition, and in a twisted way it made sense that everything would end exactly where the first insult had begun, in the same family group chat inviting everyone except me. I walked through the gate with the folder tucked under my arm. My mother spotted me first, her face flashing surprise before she forced a bright, brittle smile. Palmer, sweetheart, you made it. She said it loud enough for everyone to hear. As if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't spent the last week defending Tegan at every turn. As if she wasn't still convinced I was the villain. I didn't answer. I headed straight for the long picnic table covered in red checkered cloth, squeezed between coolers and trays of potato salad. Conversations faltered as I placed the thick folder in the center of the table, and opened it. A hush spread through the yard like a wind passing over a field. People drifted closer. Someone turned the music down. Mom stopped mid-step. Dad froze at the grill. And Tegan, flipping burgers like she belonged here more than any of us, narrowed her eyes as she recognized the manila folder. What are you doing? She demanded, voice sharp. I ignored her and began laying out the documents one by one. First, the property deed, my name alone, recorded 2021. Second, the 30-day eviction notice, date stamped and signed by Tegan herself when the process server delivered it. Third, the mortgage acceleration letter, stating the home would enter pre-foreclosure if no payment was received. Fourth, Wells Fargo's fraud investigation document, outlining the $480,000 loan attempt using my social security number. Fifth, the Chapter 7 bankruptcy discharge from Maverick Whitaker's case. Every page marked with Tegan's signature from her first marriage. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The paper spoke louder than anything I could have planned. Plates dropped. Conversations died instantly. Dad stared at the bankruptcy files like they were radioactive. An uncle muttered something under his breath. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Tegan laughed. Loud. Hi. Fake. Is this supposed to scare me? She said, stepping around the grill. This is pathetic. She's jealous, everyone. She's jealous and bitter and making up stories because she hates that Gage found someone who actually loves him. Before she could spin further, the gate opened behind me. Maverick Whitaker stepped in, tall, quiet, carrying nothing but the weight of his past. The yard fell into absolute silence. Tegan's face drained of color so fast it was almost impressive. Mav, she whispered. Maverick didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't blink. You did the same thing to me, he said simply. Gage turned toward his wife, eyes wide, confused. Tegan, what is he talking about? Maverick walked closer and placed his own file on the table next to mine. She drained every account I had, took out credit cards in my name, maxed them all, promised her business would pay it back. I lost my house, my truck, my savings, everything. He pulled out his phone, unlocked it, and slid it across the table. Dozens of screenshots of Tegan's texts. It's temporary, baby. Just one more card. Banks won't check. Don't be dramatic. Copy and paste lies. The exact same script she'd used on Gage. The exact same lines from the Investigator's report. Gage looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Tegan, he said quietly, is any of this true? She spun toward him, eyes blazing. Don't listen to them. They're twisting everything. They're trying to destroy our marriage because they hate that we're happy. I stepped forward, voice calm. You forged my signature on a $500,000 loan. Gasps rippled through the yard. Tegan snapped back to me. You can't prove. I lifted the Wells Fargo document with her handwriting. She froze. Her mouth moved but no sound came. Gage's knees seemed to give out as he sank onto the bench, staring at the documents with a hollow expression. I didn't know, he whispered. I swear, Palmer, I didn't know. Tears hit his hands. Real tears. The kind that come from the realization that your entire life has been built on someone else's lies. Tegan lunged toward the table, reaching for the papers as if grabbing them would erase the truth, but Dad stepped between us and grabbed her wrist. Not harsh, not violent, just a silent stop. The first boundary he had ever placed with her. Enough, he said. His voice cracked. She yanked away and screamed. You're all insane. You're choosing her over your own son. She protected us, Dad said quietly. You destroyed us. That moment right there was the shift. The exact point where denial cracked and reality bled through. I closed the folder, lifted it off the table and looked at my brother. You have 30 days to move out, I said softly. Not cruel. Not triumphant. Just final. And after that, I'm done. Tegan screamed something behind me, but I didn't listen. I walked out of the yard without looking back. Past the grill, past the picnic tables, past decades of family patterns I had finally outgrown. And when I reached my car, the only sound behind me was Gage crying into his hands and the faint sizzle of meat burning on the grill. The weeks after the barbecue felt unreal, like watching a building collapse in slow motion while knowing you weren't the one who lit the match, just the one who finally stopped holding up the rotten beams. For the first time in months, my phone stayed quiet. No frantic group chats. No guilt-soaked paragraphs. No late-night voicemails from Gage begging me to fix problems he helped create. Just silence. The kind that feels unfamiliar at first, then strangely peaceful. I didn't check on them. I didn't ask. I didn't hover the way I used to. I simply let everything unfold exactly the way it was always going to unfold once the truth was no longer being hidden under family denial. The first major fallout hit 2 weeks later. The house. The Carey property had officially entered pre-foreclosure. The bank sending formal notices to the address and my attorney confirming every step. I didn't drive by. I didn't check on the place. But one morning, while I was reviewing quarterly budgets in my office, the mortgage servicer emailed the final acceleration letter. Payment missed, grace period expired, foreclosure proceedings authorized. By the end of the month, the lockbox was installed on the front door. A clean cold K padlock glinting in the North Carolina sun. The house that had once been a gift, my attempt to give Gage stability, was now a casualty of choices he made while letting someone else steer his life straight into a ditch. From the outside, it probably looked cruel. But I knew better. Saving someone from consequences they helped create isn't love. It's prolonging their collapse. The second fallout came fast behind it. Gage's job. Auto shops run background checks regularly, especially when customer vehicles and insurance claims are involved. The moment his employer saw the Wells Fargo fraud notice, the open investigations, the pending lawsuits tied to his name, they didn't even hesitate. He was fired on a Tuesday morning. I know because he tried calling me 8 times in a row afterward. I didn't answer. What could I say? I warned you. You made your choices. I'm not your financial parachute anymore. Silence was kinder than any truth he wasn't ready to hear. Then came the lawsuits. The first from Wells Fargo. Repayment of fees, penalties, and statutory damages from the fraudulent loan attempt. Then 2 more from credit card companies. Accounts Tegan had opened using Gage's identity, while he thought they were building a future together. The total judgment hit 6 figures so fast it made even my attorney pause. Garnishments were filed. Bank accounts frozen. Every dollar Gage earned from any future job would be swallowed the moment it appeared. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt resolved. You can warn someone 1,000 times about the person they're marrying, but until they see the wreckage with their own eyes, they'll keep believing the fantasy. Tegan, on the other hand, didn't just face legal consequences, she unraveled. Creditors found every dime she'd ever borrowed. Collections hounded her. Civil judgments stacked like dominoes. And because she had burned Maverick before burning Gage, she now had 2 ex-husbands ready to cooperate with any investigation. The woman who strutted into my office demanding $2 million was now dodging process servers and posting vague, passive-aggressive Instagram stories about fake people who can't handle a queen leveling up. But the truth was simple. She wasn't a queen. She was a scam artist finally running out of victims. My parents didn't escape the fallout either, not because I wanted them to suffer, but because enabling someone always comes with a cost when reality hits. Their little Durham house went up for sale in August, the listing rushed and underpriced. They needed money to help Gage survive the avalanche of debt. They sold it $10,000 under asking, moved into a 2-bedroom apartment off Guess Road, and for the first time in their lives, they felt the weight of decisions they'd spent years ignoring. I didn't intervene. I didn't send money. I didn't bail anyone out. Sometimes the only way people learn is by sitting in the quiet corners their own choices created. Mom tried reaching out a few times. Short, pained messages written like she wanted to stay angry, but didn't have the energy anymore. You're still our daughter. We miss you. Gage is struggling. But I didn't reply. I had spent my entire life being the emotional sponge for this family, absorbing every mess they didn't want to handle. This time I protected my peace. The last letter came from Dad. A real letter. 3 handwritten pages on lined paper, folded carefully like he'd rewritten them more than once. He didn't blame me. He didn't defend Gage. He didn't make excuses. He apologized for staying silent too long, for ignoring the warning signs, for letting Tegan manipulate the whole family. He said Mom cried every time they drove past the old neighborhood. He said Gage slept on their couch some nights, eaten alive by shame he didn't know how to carry. And at the end, in one shaky line, he asked the question he was afraid to ask out loud. Is there ever a path back to being a family again? I dictated my response to my attorney, not because I wanted to be cold, but because every boundary I set needed to be legally clean. No. I wish you well. Short. Final. Not cruel, just true. And that was the last piece of the collapse. The moment I stopped waiting for someone to change. The moment I let the past stay in the past. The moment I chose myself fully without apology. People think walking away from family means losing something. But sometimes it means escaping something. Sometimes it means finally breathing. And for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't holding anyone together. I wasn't fixing anyone's disaster. I wasn't the safety net beneath a circus that never appreciated me. I was free. In the months that followed, life settled into a rhythm so quiet and steady that it sometimes felt unreal, like waking up in a different world where the constant pull of obligation had finally stopped tugging at my shoulders. For the first time in years, my mornings weren't shaped by someone else's emergencies. There were no frantic calls from Gage, no guilt-laced messages from Mom, no drama that needed my attention before I even finished my first cup of coffee. Instead, sunlight slipped through the blinds, the apartment stayed still, and my own thoughts, my own needs, took up space I hadn't allowed them to occupy in a long time. The peace didn't hit all at once. It arrived slowly, like warmth spreading through a room after someone finally closes a window that's been left open for years. I didn't wake up wondering what crisis I had to solve. I didn't tiptoe mentally around the emotional landmines my family always left scattered behind them. I started taking walks again, slow ones with no destination. I joined a weekend running group. I slept better, cooked more, laughed more. The anxiety I'd once mistaken for responsibility faded one layer at a time, revealing something unfamiliar but comforting underneath: freedom. Not the dramatic kind people post online about cutting ties, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you no longer owe your sanity to people who never protected theirs. Cutting off toxic roots isn't cruelty. It's choosing growth. And growth is rarely pretty, rarely soft, rarely simple, but it's necessary. I thought I'd feel guilty. I thought the silence would echo like abandonment. But the truth surprised me. I didn't carry guilt. Not even a little. I carried clarity. A clean understanding that walking away from people who repeatedly harm you isn't betrayal. It's self-respect. I had given more chances than anyone had earned. I had swallowed insults, funded their comfort, and patched their problems until my own life felt secondary. But once I finally said no, once I finally drew a line that couldn't be erased or negotiated, the world didn't collapse. It opened. It widened. It softened. That's the thing about peace. You don't recognize how starved you were for it until it finally arrives. Work became more meaningful. I stopped dragging old emotional weight into new projects. My team noticed the difference before I did. Blair told me one morning, "You look lighter." And for the first time I agreed. I started mentoring younger engineers again, something I'd stopped doing because my mind had been stuck in survival mode with my family. The company sent me to conferences. I gave talks at universities. Every step felt like reclaiming pieces of myself I had given away to people who didn't deserve them. And somewhere in that mix of responsibility and freedom, I found a different kind of strength, one I'd never had while bending my life into shapes that made other people comfortable. Strength is not sacrifice without limits. It's boundaries without apology. It's the steadiness that comes from knowing you protected yourself when no one else would. I didn't need revenge, validation, or apologies that would never come. I needed distance. And I finally took it. Even now, sometimes I catch myself wondering about them, not with longing but with perspective. I wonder if they learned anything. I wonder if they still think I overreacted. I wonder if Gage ever realized how deep the manipulation ran, or if he still believes my refusal to save him was betrayal instead of love with final boundaries. Maybe he'll figure it out someday. Maybe he won't. Either way, it's no longer mine to solve. Healing doesn't require reconciliation. Sometimes healing is accepting that the ending won't be neat, won't be mutual, won't be something you revisit with smiles years later. Sometimes the healthiest ending is distance. The most surprising part was how my world filled back in. Not with the same people, not with replacements, but with better energy. Friends who checked in, colleagues who respected my time, even strangers who treated me with more kindness than my own family did. I felt connected again, but this time by choice, not obligation. And every night, when I settled into my apartment with the city hum outside my window, I felt that quiet glow people talk about, the after effect of choosing survival, strength, and sanity over the approval of people who took me for granted. If I learned anything, it's this. You cannot save someone who uses your kindness as a ladder to climb onto your shoulders. You cannot love someone enough to undo the damage they choose again and again. And you cannot build a life on top of people who only show up when they need something. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away before they pull you under with them. Sometimes protecting yourself is the only way to break a cycle generations before you kept repeating. And sometimes the glow that follows isn't triumph. It's relief. Quiet, steady relief that whispers, "You finally chose yourself." I don't miss the chaos. I don't miss the noise. I don't miss the version of me who was afraid to disappoint people who disappointed me without hesitation. I miss what I wished we were, not what we actually were. But I've made peace with that. I've made peace with all of it. And in that peace, I found a truth I wish I had learned years earlier. Walking away isn't losing family. Sometimes it's saving the only family member who ever showed up for you, yourself. If you stayed with me all the way through this story, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments which moment hit you the hardest. Was it the group chat insult, the office scene, the fraud attempt, the barbecue showdown, or the final break? And have you ever had to set a boundary with someone who never thought you'd walk away? Your stories matter here. Make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe so you never miss the next one. And remember, protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's survival.